to Epic? I know that some of those things are not able to, like, for example, the like acuity levels. I know that that's automatically done by Epic as opposed to
So,
interventions.
so I could speak to and I just want to be perfectly clear, guys, in that now that we're going over to Epic, and that I've left the clinical informatics department, I'm kind of at the same level as you guys as far as the understanding of the EHR. I've been in more meetings. I've been exposed to more information that I've tried to share as much as possible with staff. But if I could speak to the acuity, you're right. The acuity now versus us having to go in and fill in a specific intervention, acuity will now be tied to what we document within the EHR. So it'll be an automatic based on what I've read on this presentation here. There's no need for us to go in there and document what we've done on a separate assessment because acuity is tied to what we're already documenting. Does that make sense?
Okay, so as RCs, we don't need to pull it from Meditech on a daily basis.
That was my understanding. That was my
Right.
understanding. What I would suggest as charge nurses and relief charge nurses is we review this document here to see if there's any questions. Again, my knowledge as far as the workflow that's contained within Meditech is not as deep or as detailed as what you might have as a relief charge nurse or as a charge nurse. But I can tell you this much: as an individual nurse, you will not have to go in and fill out a special assessment. Now, mind you, I'm not sure in regards to what reports you might need to run, but what I've been told in the past is the amount of work that goes into it will be a lot less with Epic.
Okay, that's great.
Should we go through these slides on that topic, Richard, real quick?
Absolutely, yeah. So again, like I said here, the acuity will measure the scores, and what it'll do is it'll give you that future workload, right? So you could, I'm assuming, so you can staff accurately for the next shift. So this nursing workflow acuity score is not a measure of the work that was already performed, nor is it a measure of the severity. And again, it's going to calculate, going to give you a score based on orders and nursing documentation. Let me see what else.
And it's the real-time documentation is the most important because it's going to be at 3 and 3 is when it will calculate. And so if anything is not documented at that point that would like increase that score, it'll be a problem. So I think from the nursing standpoint, the biggest thing is, yes, you don't have to do an additional acuity kind of intervention, but you should try to make sure that your documentation is up to date by 3 and 3.
That is a common theme that I'm seeing at every meeting that I go is the importance of documenting in real time. I know that when we went up with Meditech, we try to encourage people to document at the bedside. And I know it's not always the best thing to do when you're trying to converse with a patient or assess a patient to hurry up and get on the computer. But based on this acuity and based on the fact that patients will have access to their charts in real time, one of the most important things that we need to keep in mind is the importance of documenting in real time as much as possible.
And so the rules are broken into these categories that help calculate it. So those are just something somebody was asking, what is that made of? And the rules are throughout the charting. So it looks at all of these things: ADLs, medication, intensity of needs like patient behaviors, psychosocial things. And then these are the example of the orders that it pulls from. So if it sees these orders, it will also bring to the calculation of the acuity. And then risks, wounds, admission, and discharges are also taken into consideration. So a lot of things that are on our current 1 to 4 list. So it may be interesting in the future to be able to use these if we see those correlate and get rid of the manual process that we're doing now for staffing, that we're working on for acuity staffing. And this keeps going on to assessments.
All examples of what drives the scoring, right? And I think Sakura asked a question about being able to pull a report to make the next shift's assignment. And I believe there is a section here.
Yes, so caregivers can see the acuity scores with the patient list column. If you hover over the score, you can see the score breakdown. So the charge nurses could do that, I believe, with the patients as well. But then reports are available from the patient list if caregivers would like to see more details about the score breakdowns. And this is a screen that you could search, in the education or in the modules, it talks a lot about going and searching over for something if you want more information about it. And I think that's something, right, Richard? They could go over and search workload acuity and get some help
Correct.
to this. Okay.
There is a section as if you guys have finished your class where you go in and all you have is data elements that you could pull in, and I believe I saw this acuities was one of them.
Yeah. And I have that link it's part of the PowerPoint presentation, so I'll send that to you. So you can view the entire unit score on patient lists and sort the column from high to low and make the assignments for the next shift and distribute high, medium, and low acuity patients evenly. One of the things that they do at our sister ministry is and I'm not sure exactly, I haven't gotten the final on this, but when they go, the charge nurse will take that report at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. And this shows you how to extract the report. And then they bring it to the staffing office. And I think the staffing office I think it's Tarzana, they go ahead and they at the staffing office, they fill out another form, which shows the low, medium, and high acuity patients. And so this is, I'm sorry, it's not Tarzana, it's Torrance. And so I don't know if this is the exact sheet, but I'm assuming our charge nurse will take the report that it's extracted. And like I said, I can do some playing around with that and try to make a little guide for that. Fill out the information on this and give it to the staffing office at the huddles, and then they'll transfer this information. That's the latest I've heard. If I hear anything final on that. And again, and the key takeaways here are real-time documentation, accurate documentation, documenting in discrete fields versus free text, because the fields will capture more than the free text, and then it's future. Okay, I'm sorry, Dom, so you're next. I just wanted to kind of touch on that while we were talking acuity. What was the next thing that you guys had questions about or wanted to talk about?
Man, I'm just going off by that document.
Okay.
Yeah, Jessica Lee was just giving me this document, and like on the first page, there are mainly like interventions that I was trying to find where I can find it in Epic. A majority of it is from flow sheets, the flow sheet tab.
Okay.
And there's actually a search field, which is nice. If you can't find something, you just search it on the search field, and it'll pop up, and it'll point you the right direction in the flow sheet when you're charting. So that's a kind of nice feature.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking within Epic itself, right?
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. I mean, there's other things like the strokes. There's questions about modified ranking, the pupillometer.
I can pull up something for you real quick on the stroke. This is something that was sent to me by Cecile. Actually, and Colleen is working on a cheat sheet for you guys. But Mission actually did a lot of work on looking at all their strokes and where to document. And so Colleen this is Mission's, not ours, but Colleen is going to transfer all these interventions and cheat sheets that Mission did the work on to show you what needs to be documented on. I know this doesn't apply to us because we're not doing groin checks, but I think for other things that we do with groin checks, right, this is nice things to even look at. But it goes over all the different things that you should be doing for your stroke patients and the care plan, how to add them, how to do the mandatory elements of the stroke education. It looks a little bit different than we currently have. But this sheet will be available to you guys shortly, and I hope that will answer some of the stroke questions and where to document the stroke.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. That'll work.
And it looks like, just like what you were saying, Dom, it really flows off those tabs. So this, the stroke education, of course, would be in that tab, and a lot of things being in the care plan or the flow sheets. And Richard, it's different, right? With the care plan, it doesn't drive and add all the interventions like our current one does.
Well, it'll from based on the education that I've seen is it's going to automatically load things that are general to all patients that come into the hospital. But as you start, specializing with these or getting more into the weeds as to what the patient is suffering, you'll have to add elements to it,
Okay.
which is kind of what we were doing in Meditech, really to a certain extent.
Okay.
Yeah, Kim, that's great. I love the screenshots. And then just having like a checklist, because in the beginning we won't know what we're missing because it's not an automatically populated thing and we're not used to it. So that would be really, really helpful to have like maybe a sheet of those. We can practice checking those things off, like as we did with our discharges when we were learning how to do that again.
Okay. And I'll send, keep in mind that that's missions, but I don't have a problem sending that over to you guys today. So you can take a look at it before Colleen's is finished, just in case hers takes a little bit longer.
Can we have the groin stuff too, since we do the TAVRs and the mitrals and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send that over. I'll send that mission document over so you can take a look at it.
Okay.
Okay. Richard, I haven't dug deep into the patient admission discharge care planning examples here. Do you think those are helpful? Should I open any of these?
I think so.
I'm not sure what it is you have. Why don't you go ahead and open it and we can look at it? So as far as the admission stuff, we all know that there is an Admit Navigator tab within Epic, right? When we're documenting.
That's correct.
So as far as what I've been told is whenever we're going to admit somebody, that's really the tab we should be going, because it'll have all the assessments that we need to complete. But again, if there's anything specific that St. Joe's was doing at one time in Meditech, then we'll have to call those out and see where we have to do that documentation. I do have the document that Kim sent. I'm trying to get some answers for you guys on that to see where we should document or where some elements are located. There wasn't a one-to-one mapping done of all these assessments.
And this website, it looks like this is a good link for a guide that looks at most of the things that are on a med-surg type patient. I can ask, sometimes I think we're a little ICU or DSU in a way. Maybe I'll see if I can find a link for this to see if they're, go ahead.
A link for what, I'm sorry?
For ICU patients, because I think that, go ahead.
Go up to the top.
Okay.
So if you try to going home, there is specific categories like for ICU nursing. So if you scroll down to the tab, so go to the hospital acute, and you'll be able to find. So there's your types of nursing, and let me see if there's a specific. There's the critical care RN, second column down towards the bottom. There you go. So if you go over to Epic Resources, whatever it might be that you're looking for, just type it up in the search box, and it should bring up whatever's in there. Mind you, it's not always going to be 100% accurate, but I found a lot of answers here.
Can you give me an example, Dom, of one of the things that wasn't crosswalked in intervention?
Hi, Kim. I have it's Aubrey. I have the document open.
Okay.
Some things that were not crossed over, like sepsis screening, Caritas, ambulation assessment.
So Caritas we could cross off the list because we won't be doing that anymore.
What else? Ambulation assessment, the generalized care plans, like general medical, cardiac. Are we doing care plans in those kind of interventions? Shift handoff.
Shift handoff is gone.
Gone? Okay.
The new score is still there, but it auto calculates. I just am not sure where. The sepsis screen, it looks like per this, the nurse sepsis screening rows have been retired. They've been removed from the PCSs as well as various admission nursing navigators.
Okay.
But you know what? Let me talk to Krista Maribal because she maybe has some resources for this. But from what I'm seeing here, it looks like they're going to use the MUSE score kind of to do that.
Oh, okay.
And sepsis order set. So I don't see that on here. But I'm going to send you guys all this link, and I think it's a good resource to be able
So,
to.
Look up sepsis checklist. Not sure if this has anything to do with it, but again, that's kind of what I've been doing is I'm trying to search and find answers to your questions doing this.
The sepsis checklist allows clinicians to see at a glance the state of recommended clinical measures and facilitate completion of actions such as entry of diagnostic and therapeutic orders and clinical documentation.
I'm guessing this is more of a guide for the physicians, though. But I could take this as an action item and see what I could find out from the CI department.
Perfect.
Honestly, Richard, I think we have enough to just absorb with what is in Epic that I wouldn't worry about adding all those other things that have just been deleted. If anything, it's going to be, it would be kind of good to see a checklist of what has been deleted, just so that way we know we aren't missing something and worried about it. That would, I don't know if that's already out there or not.
So is it, well, what if we worked it, if we worked it the other way? And who can we, because I know there was a lot of stuff that was built in Meditech because somebody asked us to put it into Meditech. So
Right.
Who could give us the list of what you as a med tele nurse, the basic stuff that you need to document on?
There's no basic, Richard. It takes us like an hour every day in the
We
morning.
have like a list of
yeah.
we can definitely share that with you, Richard. We have a
Yeah.
list.
I know. Trust me. During the pandemic, when I helped out a couple of days, I am absolutely sensitive to the amount of documentation that was occurring in Meditech. I was astounded by the amount of time I had to sit there looking at a computer when I could be taking care of patients. So I understand how much time it took. I honestly think switching over to Epic is gonna reduce that a little bit. It won't seem like it at first, right? Because I'm really overwhelmed by what I'm seeing when I take the classes that I'm taking. But I really think that the amount of workload is, as far as documentation is concerned, is really shrinking a little bit. I just think we're in the mindset that we document a lot. So if we're not documenting a lot in Epic, then there's something we're missing, right? That's why I want to get a clear picture as to what is the minimum that we have to document. Who could give us that answer? You know.
Well, this looks like a list of Epic changes summaries that they have here. I know later on we're gonna. So this was something pharmacy went over, and I do have the slides that I can tell you. But basically, with the insulin, it's no longer going to be on nursing. Like if you have 2 blood sugars over 180, you won't be able to increase or decrease the sliding scale before. And the sliding scale will be a little bit more before meals and a little bit less at HS, which I think will help us a little bit as far as our hypoglycemia events. But there's no longer the nursing movement of the scale automatically. The other thing that is going to be an important safety feature for hypoglycemia events, the nurse, it doesn't show up on your PRN list like we had before for like glucagon gel and things like that. So if your patient has an event and you need that, what you would do is you would override that medication, enter the order, and then link the order and give the medication to your patient. And I talked to pharmacy yesterday, and they were going to double check to make sure that there's only one glucagon that you can choose from. Because I know as I've been going through my modules, like I'll use the example of like flu shot. There was like 30 flu shots that were listed there, right, when she was selecting the flu shot, and then she chose the one that said flu shot unspecified. And so I'm hoping that there's only one glucagon there, but I have some cheat sheets from pharmacy that we'll review later. But it looks like that there's some definite tools in here that you guys can go through about the changes that we've had. As far as report and the shift event handoff, from what I can understand from other ministries that do this is the nurse will look at the storyboards of their patients, and then they will do walking rounds. And so that's kind of how that'll look. You'll sit down, you'll assign your patients to yourself, and you will review the storyboards. And then, Richard, correct me if I'm wrong, if they do sticky notes, only them can see the sticky note?
What do you mean only them?
Could the nurse that does the sticky note in the chart, are they the only one that can see it, or other people can see that as well?
Yeah, I think when it comes to anything in Epic, when we document anything, we need to assume that everybody can see it.
Yeah, okay.
That's the other, again, with the fact that patients have access to real time to their chart, I think it's just going to be a good practice to make sure that whatever we put into Epic, we need to assume that everybody's going to be able to see that.
Okay. And Sakura had a question.
Yeah. So back in Meditech, you put in your standard of care and then you put in a care plan, and the care plan automatically put in a bunch of interventions, like if you hit stroke. So is that, if we put in a care plan, it's not going to automatically generate a bunch of interventions?
I think the process is different as to how we do how we document care plans, because
Okay.
I know, so in Meditech, like you said, you put in the care plan and process plans, and it automatically generated these interventions you would go into, right? Based on the training that I've seen, that I've taken, documenting on care plans is a separate process that I would go under care planning.
Okay. And then the second thing, are all the doctors is it mandatory that they are being trained to do Epic? Because this was a huge problem last time when we converted over to Meditech, that half the doctors, the specialty doctors, were not learning it. And so they were dumping their work on us, which added to our stress and workload, because they would ask us to do, and they would cheat. They would do the MD to RN thing, which I know is not going to be there in Epic. And I'm glad. But at the same time, I want to know, are they going to be reprimanded? Are they being told, you got to learn this, otherwise you're out? Because I am so sick and tired of Dr. Faraday saying, put this order in, put this order in, put this order in, because he doesn't know how. And that was one software program behind, you know what I mean? So
I can honestly say that that's the expectation, is that physicians are entering all of their orders in there. I can't speak as to how they're going to be reprimanded. That would be a Dr. Russ question. But that is the requirement. I think as nurses, we need to stick together and make sure that we're not facilitating physicians not entering orders into the system, because I want to be perfectly clear. Going forward, we won't be able to just hand our chart over to the unit secretary, because the unit secretary access to entering certain orders will be extremely limited.
Right.
And on top of that, going forward, if there is an order for a medication, the expectation now going forward is nurses will enter medication orders directly into Epic. There won't be any more scanning down a pharmacy like we were, like current state.
And I can see a lot of medication errors happening that way unless the doctor puts it in himself. You know what I mean? I can understand a telephone readback order, but there's a lot of doctors that just verbally just dump it on you. And that's why I always wrote it down, so that way it was crystal clear. But now we take that medium out, writing it out. I just feel like they need to take the ownership more of, you either be patient, let me telephone read it back to you, or you take that responsibility and put it in. So that's why I'm wondering, Kim, also as a support to the nurses, how are we supposed to respond to the doctors who have a way of doing this? They like to bypass and just, I'm sorry, but there's certain doctors that still to this day don't know how to work at Meditech, and they don't the nurses. How are we going to push back and say, no, you need to take this. This is your responsibility. How are we going to do this?
Sure. Let me just tell you kind of what I know about what you're saying here. Dr. Rusk has said that he supports the physicians only. So the only time that the nurse would be entering the orders would be in situations where it would be like an emergency, an urgency, or if the physician can't get to a computer. those would be the times that you would take those orders. Otherwise, the physicians are going to be entering those orders. I think there's going to be a learning curve, just like with a lot of our nurses. Many of our nurses have used Epic in the past. This is less daunting to them because they have a little bit of background around it. Similarly, with some of our physicians, right? Ortho is stating that a lot of their physicians already work over at Hoag and are very familiar with the system, and it's not going to be a problem. For the first 2 weeks, from what I can understand, there is an Epic support system that will be on our unit for 12 hours. I'm assuming that that Epic support person will be heavily assisting the physicians in that first week, as well as the nurses. I mean, not just the physicians, but I think from a nursing standpoint, we will also have a super user on our floor. And I think if the Epic super user is tied up with the physician, we will probably use ours. And then that's kind of what I'm seeing the first week, which felt thankful to me. For the question in the chat about, are the physicians being trained for Epic? Yes, they are being trained. Richard, I don't know if you know, but does the rule of no training, no access apply to the physicians as well, or just nursing?
It actually started with the physicians, and I was kind of shocked to see that it would be applied to nursing as well. But that's where it originated from, is that as a physician, you didn't take your classes, you didn't attend what they call the POWs, where I think it's the physician optimization workshops that are being held at the Trellis building, that their access would be cut off. So, I mean, I'm hoping they stick to their guns. But again, like Kim said, this change is going to be rough for all of us. And I understand there's physicians out there that have played this game for a long time. We just have to be extremely diplomatic, because remember, at the end of the day, what we're doing is to improve patient outcomes. We're doing it for the patient. I'm not saying that we should enable these physicians. I just think we should handle these things diplomatically, and understand that we're going through this. Like Kim said, there's going to be help out there, but I think a lot of it, the result of our interaction begins with how we respond to it to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just understand that it's going to be a trying time, but yeah, we can't be enabling. I would say communicate with your leadership, with support that's on the units whenever you do encounter these tough issues. But I honestly do think that holding the line and saying, listen, sorry, I can't enter these orders. You're going to have to enter them yourself and then proceed from there. But always try to stay pleasant as much as possible. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
True. And I think, best too is to let us know, because I think once Dr. Rusk, anything like RLs or things that are entered, he follows up on all of those things. They are taken very seriously, and once they see a trend, so it's important to, if you see those things, let us know, because sometimes those things happen on the floor and we don't really know. But great question. There was a chat from Andrea about telemetry orders and documentation, and so it looks like there's a great guide in here, and I can download this and send this to you guys as well. But Epic, the same time that we moved to the 1-2 day and indefinite order, everyone in Epic did as well. And so how we had the cheat sheets of like what to do when it pinked up and how to safely DC the tele and remove the tele, the steps are in here as well. So will that be helpful if I send this out to everyone?
Yeah, that'd be so helpful.
Yes,
Okay,
that'll be helpful.
so I will do that. Okay, and then did you guys, before we move on to messaging the pharmacy, did anyone have any other questions or that they wanted to address?
Yes, Richard. I was told that we no longer will be using Perfect Serve, but Epic has its own communication system.
Yes, that's actually a slide group here.
So what I want to say from the beginning, at this point, where we stand right now, and again, whatever I say now could change in a couple hours, right? But from what I know, we will keep utilizing Perfect Serve in the meantime until we make that transition over to whatever system we're going to have in place. The contract for Perfect Serve has been extended to next year, but I'm hoping that they will have a process in place here relatively soon and help us make the transition over to the Epic Secure Chat. So within Epic, there is the ability to do a secure chat. However, there's limitations with that as well. Perfect Serve, the nice thing about Perfect Serve is they have what they call the dynamic scheduling, which means if I'm having a deal with Dr. Pham in the morning, once the dynamic scheduling kicks in after hours, it'll send any and all calls or texts over to the patient who's covering, correct?
Correct.
Epic doesn't have anything like that. And the best solution they have so far that I've seen from other ministries, and I believe it's Little Company of Mary, they utilize secure chat. However, there's rules in place that we can only use secure chat during operating hours. So let's just say from 7 to 6. Let's say that's a physician covering. That's their hours of work. After hours, we would have to call the exchange. It kind of takes us a step back. However, and I know that doesn't seem like a good thing, but based on the changes that are coming to Perfect Serve, I believe we're going to lose that dynamic scheduling. So even if we stay with Perfect Serve, eventually we're going to be in the same situation that we're going to be in with secure chat within Epic. I think it's better to go with secure chat within Epic because at least we're in the same application and we don't have to go through that process of having Meditech on one screen and having Perfect Serve on the other screen if that's what's being done up on the floors. However, the message right now that I can give you guys is that we're staying with Perfect Serve until otherwise told.
Does this patient-centered care team access apply at all to us, or is this not going to happen?
No, these are going to go away.
Oh, but is this like the new Perfect Serve, this patient-centered care team access? I don't know what this is.
This is the care teams that people are currently utilizing.
Oh, okay. So these tabs are going to go away?
Right. There's a whole bunch of I don't want to call them enhancement, but changes that are coming to Perfect Serve.
Okay.
But we get to use it still for the next year or so.
Well, I'm hoping that it'll be a matter of weeks before we can switch over. I know that Gemma's got some kind of testing going on, and we're in contact with other ministries or LA hospitals to see exactly how they're utilizing the system. But I'm going to be perfectly transparent and honest with you guys. We're going to lose a lot of the functionality that we had with Perfect Serve either way. So we'll be in the same spot. We just have to be sure we have to get clear communication as to what we're going to be utilizing in the future and some clear standard work.
So the doctor will no longer have the patient information like they did before when we text them? Is that what this is saying?
I believe so. There's a lot of functionality that's going to get lost. And it's really all it's going to become is just a way to, and really what it should be now is me sending a text to whatever doctor I'm dealing with to give me a call at a certain number, right? Because we shouldn't be taking orders or anything like that utilizing a paging system. We're clear on that, right? Because policy does state that we shouldn't be receiving orders via Perfect Serve.
Okay, so what is this? Is this not accurate then anymore? The Perfect Serve will remove access on May 15th?
Yeah, that's the contract's been extended.
Okay.
Not sure where you got that.
Okay. Do you want to talk about, let's see. Let me go back. You want to look at the pharmacy? Well, talk a little bit about Rover, because I think the Rover that was presented in the education was a little bit misleading about what it can do.
So that's the understatement of the year. So yes, the presentation, unfortunately, guys, the presentation that was on our training was extremely misleading. They talk about all kinds of functionality. In a perfect world, we would get all that functionality that Rover has. What I'm being told is the functionality that we can absolutely expect on day one is the ability to take wound photos to replace the functionality that we're going to lose with Healthy Picks. That's the only thing that I've been told that we're going to receive on day one. I know that Gemma is working to try and hurry up and get us some more functionality with these phones. That would be the extent of our utilization of Rover.
Okay.
But again, in a perfect world, once everything's rolled out, I guess technically we should be able to document certain things within Rover. We should be able to scan medications so we can administer medications at the bedside, so on and so forth. Okay. Any questions regarding that?
So is Rover a device that we carry like a phone, or is it just left in the patient's room?
Rover is an application that'll be loaded onto the iPhones that all units will get. But
Richard,
again,
I want mine to be red.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I said, Richard, I want mine to be red.
You got it.
Red
I'll
Rover,
get-
Red
I'll get-
Rover. Send Richard right over.
I'll bring the paint.
Okay. All right, so we had a important kind of meeting yesterday with pharmacy, so I wanted to review some of the things that I don't know if it was heavily covered in our education, but nursing and pharmacy and communication I know is a big deal. And after the last meeting, actually, Kelly and I talked with pharmacy to kind of see what we could do to improve processes, and we can definitely have that another meeting in the future after we go live. But this cheat sheet basically says how we will ask for missing dose and reorders. Does this look familiar? Did you guys remember seeing a little bit about this in the education?
Yep.
Okay. So it just basically, you'll hit that RX. I think it'll actually be a little bit easier than in the past.
I agree. The cool thing about this is that, like right there in that section that you're showing, is that I have the ability at the medication level to send a message about that specific medication to pharmacy.
And so you'll just click on that RX, and then you'll put the reason for the message, missing dose, whatever it may be, and send it. In the future, I think it'll be great because it'll pop up on our in the Rover app, right, Richard?
Correct.
But for now, we're just going to need to go back and check so that we can see things in there. And pharmacy said if there's something urgently that they need to talk to us about, they won't just put the message in here, they'll call us. But there's also, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kim. If I can interject, you can actually mark the message as urgent. You know how in Perfect Serve now we just kind of, put in all caps, like please immediately, and you're sending it to like dosing pharmacy versus the pharmacist like in question. This goes to the same place,
Correct.
but then you can mark it as urgent if it's like a, his cardamom's running out, he's got to go to CT sort of situation. Which is really nice. And they were saying that unfortunately, like, sometimes they'll add special dose instructions. They said with Epic, that's very, very limited. So unfortunately, they won't be able to do those things very much, which is a bit of a bummer because sometimes it's nice to have that note, like, please make sure, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, whatever they like to put on there. So just so you all know, those requests probably won't be able to be accommodated.
Okay. One of the really nice things, talking about things to gain, is now it'll show you on which side the medication is and where it's at. So you'll know that. And it'll also show you if it's a cabinet override medications. And there's a lot of links on these PDFs on if you forgot how to link the override medication to the order. So I'll send out these hot sheets after as well. This talks a little bit about Sakura, what she was talking about paper orders. Paper order is completely discouraged. They're going to, on the downtime, after the downtime, right, Richard, remove all the paper forms from the unit.
I think we go yes. I would like to have everything, at least from an order perspective, any order sets collected and put in one area so we could just pick up and dispose of. Because again, nothing has been mapped in regards to assessments or orders. So if there's an order specific to Meditech, you could search all day. You're not going to find it in Epic. So I have a question here. Do we still scan on Epic? What kind of scanning are we talking about?
Medication scanning? Yes.
Medication, like bedside medication scanning? We will. We will, and what's going to happen is I know that IT is working on a plan to get super users to help out with calibrating the scanners that are already attached to your bedside computers so that they'll function in Epic.
Okay, so patient's own controlled drug storage no longer have entry in Epic for Pyxis formulary, therefore no storage of patient's own med in the Pyxis. So each unit ensures a locked drawer in the med room and storage of patient's own controlled drug if having MD order to use during hospital stay. And so we have the locked cabinet that we use to keep the wound care camera in the med room, so we'll be using that. Discharge prescriptions, e-prescribe, it defaults in Epic. If needed to print on paper, the doctor is going to have to change that. It's only one medication prescription will print per page, and indication is only required for controlled drugs. And this new form, so the new paper prescription will look a little bit different on May 15th. There's a change in high-risk medication list requiring dual MAR cosign, so you'll no longer have to cosign insulin. That is something that is different. If you wanted to know the list of medications that needed to be cosigned, they'll be on this resource, so you can look at that, but no more cosigning for insulin. How do you guys feel about that?
I'm not
I
excited.
feel just fine.
Okay, all right. Standing dosing time may look a little bit different. So the pharmacy has a little cheat sheet here so that you can see that. I know we just had a pump upgrade that addressed most of the medications that are in the Alaris pump, but there'll also be another upgrade after midnight on the downtime night, May 14th, that'll include another small group of medications. I know upgrading the pumps takes a long time. But they assured us that there's such a small amount of medications that even if we did it on May 15th and updated the pumps, it probably wouldn't be a big deal. And those medications that are different, on the 15th, pharmacy will directly call the nurse to let them know, to warn them that it's important that the pump be upgraded. So there'll be some resources on that. Dosing time, a little bit for RTs. Like I said, I'll send this all out to you. Per pharmacy order, you'll not see that on the EMAR any longer, the per pharmacy. RN will see per pharmacy on the brain when you're looking at that on the to-do list. So it looks like it'll be on that. When you're looking at the icon that shows you what medications are due at that time, it'll have a little review on there, but it won't be on the EMAR as a reminder, like heparin per pharmacy or something. You'll see that alert here. And you can also see it on the per pharmacy on the work list. Medication range order. Do you know a little bit more about this, Richard?
I do not, Kim.
Okay.
I would have to lean on pharmacy to explain this.
Okay. Looks like there'll be a little bit of changes to the medication range order. I don't think it is as it was before, like where you could do this if it's that. I think it is very specific now, and so just keep that in mind when you're administering these medications. Hypoglycemia management. This is what I was talking to you guys about earlier. The glucose gel and glucagon are hidden in the nursing instruction. So if you need those, you'll have to enter the order for it and then override the glucagon and then scan the medication. And both the glucose gel and glucagon are an override list. So just something to remember for that. This is a big one, and I know some of the people I've talked to about it's kind of been an unpopular one, but electrolyte replacement looks a little bit different in Epic. The order set will be aligned with Epic, and basically for potassium, it'll only come in 10 mil equivalents and 100 cc's. And potassium with lidocaine is not an Epic standard, and so they're hoping that this won't be a big deal just because it's less concentrated using 10 cc's and 100 mils. So you'll just need to make sure that if you have an order for 20 of potassium IV, that when you grab it out of the Pyxis, that you're grabbing 2 bags. And then this time,
so I'm sorry, Kim. So I want to make sure. So say we're giving 40 MEQ IV, we grab 4 bags like at that time, and then we scan one like every hour or however often we have to give it.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, Richard? Am I wrong in that?
That's what pharmacy had presented, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then we talked about this too. You'll no longer be able to go up and down on the sliding scale. And the insulin doses are different before meals and bedtime. And then this is still working on being determined, but the saline flush is not part of the order set. Nursing to determine workflow to ensure planned line of care. So pharmacy will no longer enter in the flushes. Nursing can enter those in, but pharmacy will no longer be doing that. So I think they're still kind of figuring that out. We have a meeting later today that I think they're going to address some of those things. And then just the downtime for any of you working on May 14th from midnight to 2 a.m. There'll be a Pyxis downtime. They're going to, it's going to be kind of a, when you can access the Pyxis, they're going to start with like ER and ICU first, and then the tele units after that. And then the Gen Surge units coming up with the Pyxis. But you'll be on override, critical override during that time. And basically, if you have a medication, let's say you take out a medication and the patient decides they don't want it, you're going to need to, you can't return it to the Pyxis during that time. And so you basically will either have it saved with the charge nurse in a locked cabinet, and they'll log it on a paper form, or if you have nowhere to store the medication until it's needed, then you can just waste the medication and also put it on the paper form. And then you're going to return that paper form and the medications to the pharmacy. Codes, they're going to be giving the intubation kits to the MET and the ED nurse just so that they have those when they respond. And then these hot sheets will be going out during that time for any of you that are working on May 14th. Okay. All right, we're getting down into the last couple minutes here. Is there any other questions that we could help review?
Kim, I have a quick question. How do we know if we're a super user that day that we're scheduled to work? I wasn't sure if that was already out there on a schedule that I missed.
And the first 2 weeks, if you are the break nurse, you're considered one of the super users. And then we have also in Kronos floated you out to the Epic Cost Center. So if you look at your schedule and you are floated out to the Epic Cost Center, then that's an indication that you are the super user that day. I can also, we have a paper form that I can scan and send to everyone if that would be helpful too.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'm missing all the stuff in the chat here. So any other, oh, do you want to review this one, Richard? Support and issue escalation. Are you on mute? Maybe
Man, that was weird. I was just talking away and I was on mute.
Okay.
Same thing that happens at home. Anyhow, so so this is this support, the Go Live support and issue escalation. The one common theme that I've been hearing at every meeting that I go to is that if you encounter any problems when you're up in the floor, your first contact should be the super user that's there on your unit. I want to caution you, everybody. I want to caution everybody to thinking that we're going to get a super user that'll come in and not only be able to speak in great detail to Epic functionality, but also be able to translate that over to workflow. We're not going to have that. The super users, the people here from St. Joseph Hospital, are going to be our best resources because we know what to do and what needs to be done. Then we could ask the super users that are here, or I should say CI support that are here, that are a little bit more familiar with functionality to help us out and troubleshoot. But that should be the first contact, is whoever's up on your floor, is the super users. Then your second level would again be anybody who's rounding from the what I call the health system, which would be your CI staff, any contractors, or any I know we're going to have staff from other hospitals, and from the hospitals over in the LA region. So, but that'll be your second point. Your first point will always be our own staff that are here as super users. Then again, the third tier would be calling the helpline and calling the help desk, unfortunately, but also submitting tickets. But again, I think the most important message you can get from this slide here is to always work with the super users that are on the unit. Urgent matters, again, we'd have to go to the manager or whoever the lead is on for that day. And the second tier is always going to be your clinical informatics. We will have a command center here on site, which will be done in the DPC center, which is where we've had all our other command centers. An important thing to cover here is this TPIM process, and this is your top priority issue management. And these are for huge problems that are actually, could be patient safety issues or showstoppers, as they refer to them more commonly. I know that Michelle Genova, our new CNO, will be kind of leading this group here, but as issues arise up on the units, then we will report them to this group. And again, it has to be top priority issues, and then we can kind of decide what is a top issue at the day of when we're discussing it during our huddles. And then these top priority issues will be presented to the group, and then we'll decide which issues really need to be escalated. Now, mind you, there's got to be a difference between I can't find this documentation, can somebody help me out, or patient information isn't crossing over to the MAR, for example. Patient information not crossing over to the MAR would qualify as a top priority issue that would go to this group. But again, this is your third tier as far as support is concerned. Our first tier, the most important, is always going to be this first point of contact, which will be people who are on the unit from our own hospital. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So there's a question from Mari here. Richard, are we having one more meeting before go live, correct? Meetings as far as what kind of meeting, Mari?
The super user?
I believe that Brian DeTade has a super user meeting scheduled for the 13th. Yes, Kelly. We will always be able to call the help desk.
Well, you mean the Epic support team, right?
Correct.
Okay.
They're available 24 hours?
Yeah, so the first 2 weeks, what I've been told is that the CEC, which is the Clinical Engagement Center, I believe, will be open for the first 2 weeks, 24/7. So we'll have a pretty robust team here at St. Joseph's. Everything here in the deep, what I always refer to as a DPC, will have somebody in here, either support teams. They're going to be support teams on the technical and I believe the clinical side as well. And there will also be a team who's in charge of creating tip sheets as information comes up to kind of help ease our way through this.
And I can also make a binder of all these tip sheets that I'm sending you guys today, if that will be helpful.
That'll be great. And Kim, you mentioned that Epic Lab is open again. Do you know what the hours are?
So when you say Epic Lab, are you referring to the classrooms down here?
No, there's an Epic Lab, I think. People who want to come in and practice Epic, and there's like Epic users there, or Epic experts there to help us.
I get you. Well, so that's kind of wrapping up now since we're like a week away. All of that type of activity kind of ended on the 30th of April. But you do I've sent out the documents where you can actually access stuff to practice on from home. As far as asking somebody how to do things within Epic, then I would say you could send me an email and I'll try to find the answers as quickly as I can. Does that help?
Yes, that's how I've been using the practice lab.
Unfortunately, as far as the physical location here, the classrooms that were set aside to for you guys to practice are now going to start to be are now being utilized by other teams that'll help out with the transition.
Okay, because we were sent an email yesterday that they were reopening it again, but I might have been wrong.
I didn't see that email, but I mean, if you send me the email, I can definitely follow up.
Okay, that'd be great.
Absolutely, and I can find out what the availability at a minimum, just the classrooms down here in the DPC area where my office is at.
Yes.
I'll make sure that those are open if there's interest for people to come in here and practicing. I'll do whatever I can.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any more questions for Richard?
I know this seems a little daunting and it's a little scary, guys, but I can only share my experience of when we went up with Meditech the very first time. When we went up with Meditech the very first time, it was extremely different because we went from paper to computer. That was challenging enough, and there was tons of tears the day of go live. As we started the go live, about 2 weeks went by, and we were doing kind of a waterfall go live where we would get 2 units at a time going up with Meditech. Once we hit a really nice pace and we were doing okay and we found our stride, we brought up ICU and oncology, and the entire system crashed on us. They found out after doing some research that the infrastructure that we had in place couldn't handle the extra traffic going through our network. I'm happy to say that that's not the case this time, guys. I think the challenges that we're going to bump into right now are all workflow related, and I honestly think that the power to solve those issues or to find the answers to these challenges is all within our hands. We don't have to depend on anybody. So try to keep your head up. I'm going to work as hard as I can to get you these answers. I just need you guys to keep a positive attitude, okay?
Thank you.
And I feel like, you know, I love all the stuff that you guys have been doing, the questions that you have asked, because I feel like you're really preparing us for a good outcome, which I'm excited about. Okay, so I think that is all that we're about 5 minutes over time, and I want to be respectful of everyone. I just have one little plea before we go. We're having a lot of issues with remote telemonitoring. The day before yesterday, we had 10 instances where our staff didn't call the tele before the patient either moved to dialysis or moved to different areas, and it's a safety issue. And if we continue to not call them, my fear is that we will lose the ability to have remote monitoring, and that we'll have to use a transport monitor and transport our patients, which will be a huge tax on the nurses. So please, before your patient moves, and when your patient comes back to the room, just give a quick call to the teletext. If there's a transporter involved, you know, say, hey, are you going to call the teletext? Do you want me to? Just as a reminder so that we have clear communication with them so they know who to call in an emergency. Okay. All right. And I thank you for everyone who attended today. I will be sending out the minutes as well as all of these resources. Thank you so much, Richard, for answering our questions and helping us out.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kim.
Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, you too.
Kim, did you need an attendance for the meeting? Because I took a note of who was here.
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll email it to you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Kim.
Okay, bye, everybody.